First, I want to have Peppermint, who was the RuPaul Drag Race's 9th season runner-up and a wonderful, wonderful trans activist. Peppermint will be speaking about issues facing the trans community. Peppermint?
I'm here representing the transgender community because this year our union came under attack. If you've seen the news, you already know that we're under attack from the outsiders. After Trump took office, he quickly tweeted his intention to bar transgender Americans from serving in the armed forces. His directive would have banned all trans recruits from enlisting, kicked out those currently serving, and banned any transition-related surgeries. For just a moment, forget just that a moment that a man who took 5 deferments from serving in the military during Vietnam is denying those in the transgender community their patriotic duty, the opportunity to serve their nation, to fight for freedoms that they are being actively denied. But consider that the total cost of transition-related surgeries in the military is about $8.4 million out of $50 billion in defense spending, or just 0.01%. compared to the cost of erectile dysfunction prescriptions in the military, which totals over $84 million, literally 10 times the price. All of a sudden, it's not too expensive. How about that? The attacks on our community didn't discriminate based on age either. Trump also rescinded protections for transgender students that had allowed them to use bathrooms corresponding with their gender identity. These are our nation's most vulnerable young people who are being targeted for no other reason than transphobia. Sadly, the attacks on the transgender community also came from within. Transgender women of color are in an intersection of society that very few people can identify with, a point where transphobia, racism, misogyny all play a part in the systemic oppression that has had tragic consequences on its people. And that's most apparent with the lopsided murder rate in the trans community. In 2017, there were 28 murders in the trans community that we know of. Not only disproportionately, but a high record. 2017 alone was the deadliest year on record for transgender Americans ever. Americans ever, especially for trans women of color, who suffered 3/4 of those attacks. If a transgender person is murdered, there's an 84% chance that they are a person of color and an 80% chance that she's a woman. Those odds really don't bode well for someone like me. Even more tragic, many of those murders often come at the hands of the men closest to us, our partners, our boyfriends, and our husbands and our lovers. These are the men that we trust not only with our hearts, but our safety. Whether it's stigma or panic or fear, they're historically the ones who have been responsible for the deaths of so many trans women. But amid the onslaught of attacks, 2017 was also a year that we learned how to defend ourselves, a year that we learned how to attack back. We attacked at the polls on November 7th, 2017. There were eight transgender candidates who won elections in the United States. Danica Roem became the first openly transgender candidate to win, not only to win a state race, but that's not even the best part. She unseated a man named Bob Marshall, a Virginia Republican, best known for the Physical Privacy Act or the bathroom bill. The legislation was designed to target trans people by prohibiting them from entering any restroom that doesn't correspond with their sex at birth. The uniquely dangerous bill also required school principals to notify a student's parents within 24 hours if a child asks to be referred to as a member of the opposite sex, or to use a different bathroom. Now, armed with that knowledge, let the significance of this sink in. A transgender woman replaced the author of a bill designed to hurt her. We were also attacked in the courts. In Wisconsin, a U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that Ash Whitaker, a 17-year-old transgender student, must be allowed to use the boys' bathroom at his high school, a decision that will have far-reaching implications for similar cases. In federal court, two separate judges have struck down Trump's transgender military ban. The most recent judge said it cannot possibly constitute a legitimate governmental interest. I'm sure that's as close to throwing shade as a federal judge can possibly get. And listen, we're not talking any landslide victories here, but progress rarely is. Finally, a transgender person was responsible for permanently deleting Trump's Twitter account. Okay, fine, that hasn't happened yet, but I'm putting good vibes out there. Yes, the trans community came under attack this year, but the fight is far from over. The silver lining of being the target of such vile hatred in 2017 is that Americans, a people who overwhelmingly value progress, tolerance, and love, have seen our struggle and have heard our stories. Granted, this fight won't end anytime soon, but slowly, eventually, promisingly, the tide will turn. If 2017 taught us anything, it's that the fight is winnable. So speak out, push back, and be heard. We're definitely going to flip the script in 2018.